what kind of instruments are required. And when I say instruments, it's not physical instruments in a lab, for example, but instruments for collecting data or the clinical case record forms. What is the best study design that can help me answer that question? Am I looking at an exploratory study or an analytical study? Am I looking for an observational study or an intervention study, like an RCT? So what is the best study design that can help me answer the question? And see the flow here. The question comes first and then the design. I'll not start out saying that I'm going to do an RCT and then try to define my question. That's not how it works. It cannot work. Now, once the question is defined, the data collections instruments have been defined, the study design has been chosen, then you need to think about what kind of statistical analysis you'll have to do to process the data that you have, to draw meaningful inferences. How many participants do I need to answer the research question given the study design? And how am I going to sample that? Where is it going to come from? So what is the sampling methodology? The most critical part of a whole proposal or a research project is to ensure fidelity of data and accuracy of data. Unless we establish mechanisms for ensuring data quality during the implementation of research, what will come out eventually is junk, which is of no value. So how are we going to monitor that data quality? And then research is always time bound, because the research question is also probably time bound. What is relevant today may not have any relevance tomorrow. A few years ago, we had Nipah. Today, we have COVID. Tomorrow, we probably will have some other viral entity. So the research question is not eternal. Research question also has its own life, and the research question must be answered within the life of that research. No. And then, how much is it going to cost? What's the budget? There are other people who are working in the area who are also thinking on similar lines, thinking about the same research question perhaps. So if the funding agency is faced with XYZ number of proposals, they will look at a competitive budget. Now, ultimately, how much is it going to cost per participant enrolled into the study? So sort of a capitated budget. So is the budget competitive? And then, of course, you have to put everything together in the form of a grant proposal. Now, I'll not be going through each one of these 8 steps because as part of the program over the last 3 days, some of these aspects have been discussed, and so I'm not going to repeat everything related to all the 8 steps. I'll share some of my thoughts and eventually some of our own experiences in getting funded. Now, as part of the NICHD Global Network, since 2008, we have an ongoing maternal newborn health registry. It's a population-based prospective study in about 100 clusters across all of the global network sites, and there are 8 global network sites. There's another site in India in Nagpur, one in Bangladesh, and another in Pakistan. So there are 4 sites in South Asia, 3 in Africa, in Kenya, Zambia, and the DRC, and 1 site in Guatemala in Central America. And we work in defined geographical areas. In our setting, we work around the primary health center areas. And the basic focus is to enroll all pregnant women residing in the study for clusters and track their outcomes through 42 days, I mean both the outcomes of the mother and the newborn, to get maternal mortality, early neonatal mortality, stillbirth rate, and neonatal mortality or perinatal mortality, and some indication of morbidity as well as measures of health care, including access to skilled birth attendants, facility-based births, C-section, etc. So this has been a registry that's been going on since 2008. This May it will complete 14 years. We have already crossed 800,000 pregnancy or infant diets in the registry, and our own contribution is around 33%. Now, the reason why I'm bringing it up is this is the sort of epidemiological data that we generate, and we use this data to understand what's happening in our communities in terms of both mortality and morbidity as it relates to mothers and infants. And this is a critical piece of the whole exercise because this will tell us as to where the problems are and what kind of interventions are needed to address those problems and bring down the mortality and morbidity burden in our community. So that is sort of the stepping stone for our subsequent work. And over the last 20 years, we have implemented a number of protocols addressing some of these common causes of mortality and morbidity among the mothers, as well as some protocols aimed at improving the quality of care at delivery and postpartum period. So whether it's postpartum hemorrhage or hypertensive disorders of pregnancy or maternal and infant nutrition, sepsis, birth asphyxia, preterm birth, growth and neurodevelopment of the infants, and also some work related to cervical cancer. As I said, the causes come from the registry, and basically the registry serves as a platform to understand our communities and then help develop interventions. So if you look at the flow, so the registry provides this information in terms of what's the mortality and morbidity burden in our communities. And then you need to understand what are the causes for that mortality and morbidity as it relates to either the mothers or the newborns. And Professor Vishnu Bhatt has been part of one of this exercise trying to understand the causes of mortality from preterm birth as well as stillbirths. Once you understand the causative factors, you try to see if there are any kind of associations. Is there a genetic predisposition? Are there biomarkers which can help in predicting the adverse pregnancy outcomes? What kind of obstetric complications are prevalent? Are there any medical conditions that the population is affected by, whether it's hypothyroidism or diabetes or any of the non-communicable diseases? Maternal nutrition plays a significant role in determining pregnancy outcomes, both in the mother and the newborn, whether it is anemia or folate deficiency or any of the micronutrient deficiency or even frank caloric deficiency. Environmental factors, exposure to environmental pollutants or any of the vectors, and socio-demographic factors that contribute to the adverse maternal and newborn outcomes. So once you have this understanding, you can then go ahead and develop intervention studies to either control or prevent or treat. So if you're talking about MMR, the leading cause is postpartum hemorrhage. It's an obstetric complication, and you need heat-stable uterotonics like misoprostol or carbetocin for prevention of postpartum hemorrhage. So there you see the logical flow there in terms of how research question evolves across this spectrum, starting with an observation and ultimately ending with an intervention study. So when you're trying to develop your grant proposal, think where you are in this schema. Are you trying to first and foremost understand the magnitude of the disease in your communities? Do you have a fair idea about why we have this morbidity and mortality burden? What are the causative factors? And if you know the causative factors, what are the likely interventions that you would like to test to reduce that burden? So as I said, the research question is the starting point. So depending on where your research question is, you end up choosing the study design, whether it's cross-section to understand the burden, or analytical studies like case control and cohort studies to understand the causative factors, and then RCTs to prevent or treat the positive factors and reduce the outcomes, adverse outcomes. So the research question and the study design are the two key elements which will define your research proposal. Now, once the grant proposal is in place, as I said, you need mechanisms for monitoring the data quality. You need an internal audit system done by the investigator team itself, and you also need an external monitoring system by an independent agency to ensure that the data that is being collected and being reported is accurate, it's valid, it's reliable. And you try to build a data management system for your research to ensure that accuracy. The reason why I'm bringing it up is this is all part of a research grant proposal, and the funding agencies do look for these descriptions as to how the investigators are proposing to ensure data quality. What kind of internal audit mechanisms will be there, in what kind of external audits will be there, what kind of data management system will be employed to collect and ensure accuracy of the data. Apart from that, typically, especially for clinical trials, you do need an independent agency called as the Data Safety and Monitoring Board, which will look after the participant safety. Primarily, the DSMB responsibility is to ensure that the trial participants or the research participants are not exposed to undue risk. There is risk, of course, in any research, risk is there. But the question is, are those risks minimized as opposed to the benefits of participation in the trial? So do the benefits outweigh the risk? I mean, one of the basic principles of research, the Belmont principle. And the DSMB has an authority to stop a trial even as the trial progresses based on certain criteria. They look for whether you're getting a larger than anticipated effect size, or is there no benefit at all. So even as the trial gets conducted at periodic intervals, they look at the data and see whether, they expected a 20% reduction, they're already getting more than 30-35% reduction in mortality. Is this trial worth continuing, or should the intervention be available universally? Because the comparison arm could be either getting a placebo or the standard of care. And if your new treatment is already way superior to this current standard of placebo, there's no need to continue the trial, give the benefit of the new intervention to everyone. So that's the logic. Similarly, if there is no benefit at all from the new intervention, why continue the trial and expose half the population to the new intervention when there is no benefit? Or if there is a greater risk to the trial participants in terms of mortality or disability or hospitalization. The DSMB can also stop the trial for a number of other reasons that relate to the way the trial is completed or the trial is being implemented. You said you will do the study in 2 years, and even at the end of 2 years, you have not even recruited 40% of the expected population. The funds are running out. The funding agency will seriously think of terminating the trial, and even the DSMB may say, well, you're taking too long to answer the research question. The question is no longer valid because there is already some other research that has been reported, which has probably answered your research question either partially or completely, and therefore there's no reason for you to continue the study. So every research proposal should incorporate the plan for this data safety and monitoring in terms of who will be that body, what will be the frequency at which they'll meet and look at the data, and what kind of stopping rules are they going to use to determine whether the trial is safe to continue or not. They can also stop the trial if they find that there are too many protocol deviations. These people are not doing a good job. They said the intervention will be delivered in XYZ manner, but almost every other participant, there are deviations. Even more concerning is if there is any suspicion of falsification or fabrication of data. Falsification and fabrication, two different kinds of errors, not errors, but crimes in research that can compromise the integrity of the study. So a plan has to be there in your proposal as to how you will ensure data integrity or the study integrity. And there are various types of scientific misconduct that can happen. How are you going to avoid it? Now I'll come to the part that directly relates to getting your proposal funded. That is the last 2 steps of Bordage's 8 steps. That is, what's the timeline for your study and what's the kind of budget you're looking for or you're asking for from the funding agency. So on step 7, there are 4 questions that we need to think about. What's the timeline? Who are the people who are going to be involved in the whole design, implementation, analysis, and reporting of the study? What kind of equipment will be needed? And of course, how much is it going to cost? So in terms of timeline, pretty much standard 5 different phases of a research study. Phase 1 being, setting up all your facilities, identifying and training the study personnel, preparing all the, your getting all the approvals from ethics committees or state government if you are going to use any other public sector facilities, or approval from the national regulatory authorities, whether it is ICMR or PCGI, depending on what kind of study you're conducting and whether there is any international funding involved in that. So typically it takes about 6 months to do all this. And most funding agencies give up to 6 months to do all that work. once your proposal is approved. So build this as part of your grant proposal. You'll also need time to pilot the instruments. And when I say instruments, whether it's your consent form or the data collection tools or the case record forms or any other study procedures, it could be a, say an intravenous infusion of a drug or recording blood pressure or recording of some outcome data. So all of those procedures, say newborn anthropometry, the ultrasound, So whatever procedures are going to be involved in data collection, so those procedures need to be standardized, calibrated, and the data collection people should be calibrated to perform the procedures the way you expect them to do it. So it could take anywhere up to 3 months to do all that work, piloting of the instruments and procedures. And if you can do 1 and 2 together, it's even better, because anytime you save in phase 1 and phase 2 will come in handy in phase 3, where you have very little control in terms of the actual approval of trial participants, because there are so many extraneous factors that come into the equation. We had planned a study on cervical cancer, trying to identify high-grade HSIL stage 2 kind of lesions to test a device of cryotherapy. So in order to identify them, we had to screen women from the community, bring them to the center if they are eligible, do VIA, visual inspection with acetic acid, bring them to a center for colposcopy, then do histopathology, and if they are eligible, then do the cryosurgery. The project was planned before COVID. We completed phase 1 and phase 2 before March 2020, before the first wave of COVID. And just as we were ready to roll out, we had the first national lockdown. Somewhere in May, or May 1st to be precise, the Prime Minister announced that the lockdown will be lifted partially. So we had a dilemma as to what do we do. We have funding, our protocol is ready, we have all the approvals, the personnel are trained, but the people are scared to come to primary health centers for undergoing screening because of COVID. But we tried to talk to the community leaders, we engaged them, we sensitized them, we said we'll take all kinds of precautions possible to ensure that the participants are not unduly exposed by consenting to the trial. So even though it was a challenge, we still managed to do that. And between July 2020, when the second wave started, and March 2021, in about 9 months, we were able to screen 10,000 women in the community setting. The reason why I'm bringing it up is, we had planned to do it. We are fortunate enough to do it, but you may not always be successful and you may need more time. So if you can compress your phase 1 and phase 2 and develop some kind of buffer in terms of time, that can always come in handy for phase 3, where extraneous factors could influence your timeline significantly. The last 2 are pretty much under your control. Once the study is done, you can always set up the analysis in advance. So as soon as the data is cleaned up and locked, you can go in for analysis and then start writing your papers or reports to the funding agency, etc., or present in conferences. 4 and 5 are pretty much fixed, so that should not take more than 6 months. First 2 should not take more than 6 months. 3 is where the real challenge is. Most grants are either for 3 years or 5 years. If it is 3 years, then you are left with 2 years of data collection. If it is a 5-year major grant, then you probably can go up to 3 years of data collection. That is actual recruitment of the participants and observation. Remember, some of these studies may have a longer term follow-up. So for example, we are now doing a study looking at intravenous iron supplementation to treat pregnancy anemia in the first trimester. And we are planning to follow not just the mothers till delivery, but actually the children born to those mothers up to 24 months after delivery. That is looking even at a longer term, growth and development, especially cognitive development, because iron supplementation is supposed to improve cognitive development. So each participant will have to be tracked for practically 2 years and 6 months at the minimum. So, and if you need 6 months to enroll the participants, so you're looking at 3 months of data collection. So you're now left with another 2 years to do everything else that is involved in implementing that study. So plan your timeline. Then who are the people who are going to do the study? Who is the principal investigator? Does he have enough expertise, number one, and does he have enough time to devote to the project? And typically these are senior people, and therefore they are expected to be working on multiple grants. Some time ago, DCGI said, a principal investigator cannot have more than 3 protocols, but then they relaxed that. And now they have left it to the ethics committee to determine the number of protocols a given PI could have. So it is left to their assessment. You definitely need co-investigators because none of these research projects are single discipline research projects. You will involve multiple faculties or multiple disciplines, whether it is, for an OB protocol, it's not necessarily restricted to OB, but you'll need a neonatologist or a pediatrician or an anthropologist or a microbiologist or a pathologist, a biochemist, so, or even people from community medicine if you're looking at a field implementation or a community-based research. So you need co-investigators. You need dedicated staff who will implement the study, who will be responsible for collecting the data, who will be responsible for, monitoring the field implementation. So you need research fellows, research nurses. You need statisticians to analyze your data. You want to help set up your analysis plan, etc. And when you have such large teams involved, they need to be trained. So who are going to be the trainers? So suppose there's anthropometry involved, newborn anthropometry involved. It's not the easiest of jobs. You need to have gold standard assessors who can do that measurement. So who are the trainers? And then what kind of support staff you need? Laboratory technicians or IT staff, or even you need budget administrators. In large grants over 5 years, you have audit requirements. If you have got international funding, you need to be FCRA compliant. So you need all kinds of support staff as well to help you implement the study. And a grant proposal will have to necessarily include all of these people. There are 2 ways in which you can do it. Of course, PI and co-PI have to be determined. For the other staff, you can say TBD, to be determined or to be confirmed. But the more TBDs you have, the less confidence the funding agency will have in you. It means that you don't really have a team ready to start out if the grant gets funded. If you name people right down to a budget administrator or a laboratory technician, then the funding agency will know, all right, here is a team which is ready to start the moment we give them the money. So identify people. So who will be doing what? What kind of equipment and material will you? Again, if you're going to request the funding agency for everything to do the research, it means that you don't have any basic infrastructure available for the study. Most grants don't provide for major equipment. Most grants. Of course, unless the grant itself is for infrastructure development. And those kind of grants are there, but they are few. Typically, most research grants provide for some additional. All right, I have a Roche Cobas system. I need to add a module. Yes, they can fund the addition of that module. Or I need to upgrade the software. Yes, they can provide for that software. But they won't give you the full equipment. So you can ask for equipment, but it should not appear as if this grant is going to create the whole infrastructure for doing the study. And then finally, what's the bottom line? How much is it going to cost to do the study? Personnel, yeah, there are two things that, or one major difference that you need to understand between studies funded by the government of India versus the studies funded by international agencies, whether it is WHO or Gates Foundation or NIH or any other funding agencies, international funding agencies. Government of India, if you are a full-time faculty or if you are a full-time staff of an organization, whether it's a medical college or a research institute, or as long as you are a full-time person working on salary, you cannot ask for any additional incentive from the grant. Whereas for international funding agencies, they work on a different model. Suppose my salary is 100 rupees from my institute. The international funding agency will say, I need 50% of his time, and therefore I'll give him 50% of his salary. And then you negotiate with the institution and you can try to get that additional incentive from the grant. That's one major fundamental difference between the policy in terms of staff salaries. The Government of India grants, yes, if you want to hire a research nurse or a research officer or a lab technician or an IT technician, a budget administrator, yes, you can hire them full-time for the project and use the grant funds. But you cannot bill your own time to the grant. You, in the sense, the full-time faculty or the full-time staff of the institute. Equipment I've already mentioned about. Material and supplies, yes, everything costs. Even if I have to do a video conference, I need a camera, a laptop, a projection screen. Yeah, it is reasonable to ask for some of this material, or paper, copier, fax or courier services. If you are doing any kind of study, it does involve travel. Travel for you as an investigator, travel for the participants coming to the center. Plus, if you are asking the participant to come to a hospital for, say, an ultrasound exam or a lab test, there are lost wages. And there are rules by which those wages can be compensated. It should not be appearing as inducement. I'll give you 10,000 rupees if you consent to be in my trial. Now that is inducement. But if that person is spending a day, you're basically, and if that person is a worker, is the breadwinner, that loss of wages can be compensated. You can give him a meal, you can pay for his transportation, and then compensate for the loss of wages. So there are participant costs that can be charged to a grant. And then there are facilities and administrative costs or indirect costs, as we say. ICMR permits 10% overheads. That is, if you have got a 100 rupee grant, they will give you another 10 rupees to the institute for giving you the basic infrastructure to do the research. Gates Foundation gives 15%, NIH gives 8%. So it depends on the funding. WHO doesn't give anything because they expect the institution to support everything. So it goes by the policy of the funding agency in terms of how much of indirects you can or your institution can claim from the grant. So when you start putting together a grant proposal, these are the three things that you should look for. The first one is basically what I've talked so far. How will you keep track of the study? What's your protocol? And that protocol will include your timeline, your personnel, and the budget. The second is perhaps the most important question that you should seriously think about when you're submitting or when you're developing a grant proposal. Yeah, you might have the most brilliant of ideas. You might have the most important research question in your area. But go to a funding agency which also thinks the same way as you think. If it is not a priority area for them, they won't even look at your application, no matter how brilliant your idea may be. So before you think of submitting a grant proposal to any agency, first check what their priority areas. And most funding agencies publish the priority areas. There are some agencies which exclusively fund children's growth and development related projects. So if you go to them with a maternal health proposal, they will not even bother to review or read your proposal. It will be straight away rejected. So find out if the funding agency thinks or has your area as a priority area. And each grant proposal has to be customized to the requirement of the funding agencies in terms of what kind of forms and applications you'll have to go through, including for ICMR. And most of these forms, and in this digital era, all these forms and applications are available online from the funding agency. Some even go to the extent of defining the font size, font type, page margins, etc., word limits, hyphenation, use of all kinds of punctuation. And if you don't take care and if you are not compliant, it only means that you don't care. So why the funding agency should care for you when you are not careful enough to follow the rules and expectations of the funding agencies? So when the funding agency or the reviewers representing the funding agency look at your proposal, they're basically trying to answer 4 questions. Why should they fund this study? And that will be answered by the title, summary, and justification of your grant proposal. Is the study scientifically sound? Do you have a good research question? Do you have a reasonable hypothesis? Are you using the right or optimal research design? And do you have an adequate sample size to answer the scientific question or the research question? Third is, do you have the expertise to do this? Do you have the training to do it? And do you have the institutional infrastructure to do it? And then finally, they look at, okay, how much are these people asking for? and in what time frame they hope to accomplish. Now, among these four, the first and second are the most important questions that the reviewers will look for. Is this really worth doing? Are these people really looking at a research question that needs an answer right away? So the first and second are the most important things that the reviewers of your grant application will be looking at. If they're convinced of the first two, they do compromise a little bit on 3 and 4, especially 4. Because the funding agency, why are they putting out money? They want to be as successful, perhaps even more so than yourself to be successful. If they have made an investment, they want returns. It is business. It's a business model. If I'm investing $100,000 on your project, I better be assured of good results so that I can implement your results on a larger scale and influence policy. So the funding agencies are not going to throw away their money on stupid ideas. They want bright ideas, and if there are bright ideas, they will go out of their way to make it happen. They can give you more money than even what you have asked for. It does happen. Funding agencies do negotiate with the investigators when they're convinced that it's a very good study that needs to be done. They will go out of the way to make you successful. So just because you have a competitive budget doesn't mean that your study will be done. The budget is the last thing in the equation. The first two are the most important thing. Is this study worth doing, and are these people capable of doing it? The money will be there. So in terms of funding agencies, on the national front, there are a number of agencies: ICMR, DST, DBT, UGC, CSIR, Government of Karnataka has a vision group on science and technology. VGST does fund projects for infrastructure development as well. International scene, yes, WHO, NIH, USAID, UK Medical Research Council, NIHR from UK, European Union, not so much in South Asia. European Union is much more focused on Africa, but every once in a while they do come up with proposals or schemes to fund projects outside of the African context. So be on the lookout. Government of Norway also has an agency called NORAD. International Atomic Energy Agency also does fund some isotope studies. Non-governmental foundations, of course, the biggest funder right now as it relates to, of course, maternal and newborn health, but also related to environmental health, vaccine development, non-communicable diseases, or even education for that matter. Gates Foundation is perhaps one of the biggest funding agency right now. Their budget even goes beyond NIH. Thrasher, another entity based in US, which of course primarily focuses on child health related research. Welcome Trust from the UK and another foundation from UK, Children's Investment Fund Foundation. So these are some of the, and Merck for Mothers, I missed out on listing them. Not Merck per se, Merck, the pharma major, has a foundation, independent foundation called Merck for Mothers, and they do fund projects related to maternal health. I'll not talk about these things. These are sort of the required approvals that you will have to go through as once you get funded and once you're in the phase of implementing your study. So what makes you successful in getting a proposal funded? As I said, a good research question and good research design are absolute minimum requirement. If those two are in place, then the third becomes a little important in terms of, do you have the track record? And the funding agencies or the reviewers assess your track record based on your publications. Have they at least done a small pilot in their own medical college, be it even a dissertation that has been published? They are not looking at a Lancet publication or a New England Journal of Medicine publication. Even in your own institutional journal, if there is one, have you published? Basically, they are looking at your track record. Have they worked in this area? Do they have any expertise in this area? Does the institution where these people work have the necessary infrastructure and support to do it? And then, of course, is the budget competitive? Because there may be other people working on the same research question, and if they have a more competitive budget, obviously they will score over you. So your budget also needs to be competitive. So when I say good infrastructure, the infrastructure is in terms of the population base you have, whether it is in the hospital or in the community.
That validated meeting, but now we have to leave. We have to finish it.
So, for example, if you are looking at intrapartum intervention, what is the number of deliveries your hospital does in a year? Or if you are trying to look at a community-based study, do you have access to, or what kind of access do you have to the community? Do you have the space, equipment, laboratory, archival facility? Do you have ICT capability? And does your institution provide any seed money to do pilot work, to get that initial publication out, to establish your track record and your ability in the area? Now, this is what we have right now in terms of our study population that we are currently working in. And we work across a spectrum of primary healthcare to tertiary healthcare, including the sub-district hospitals and district hospitals. So if I go to a funding agency and say, this is the population available to me, so they know that they can pretty much understand that you can target the intervention across the spectrum of healthcare services. This is where we are working right now in terms of Karnataka, mostly in central and northern Karnataka, 10 institutions. We work even outside Karnataka in Maharashtra, Odisha, UP, Rajasthan, Delhi and Chandigarh. We have our own dedicated space for the investigators, the data center, archive, drug storage, training facilities. We have added laboratory capacity in the last 1 year, and we are going to augment it even further in the next 1 year. We are getting into biobanking or biorepositories, and we have our own separate neurodevelopmental assessment center. The reason why I'm showing all this is, when you write a grant proposal, you're also expected to provide a description of the facility or the infrastructure available for conducting the research. So if the reviewers read that, okay, all this is available, that means they have the basic capacity. So maybe they'll need one or two more instruments or equipment to augment what is already available. So your chance of getting funded will be that much better. In all the centers that we work. We have our own full-time staff and data management capability. Again, if you're going in for a multi-center trial to show that we have a collaboration with all these centers with our own dedicated staff and space, again, it goes in your favor for getting funded. And this is perhaps the most important factor. What is the expertise available in terms of the manpower? How many investigators, how many research officers? If they are working in the community setting, how many healthcare providers are trained for conducting research in the community setting? What kind of IT and support staff is available? And what is the linkage to the community itself through the community health workers? So this is what we have been able to accomplish in the last 21 years. 30 completed protocols, out of which 10 were ideas initiated by our group, because we are part of the NICHT Global Network and the WHO RHR network. Not everything comes from our own backyard. We participate in trials, but both these networks do academic clinical trials. So as part of the steering committee, you are involved in developing the protocol. So there is scientific input in every study that we undertake. And all that is possible because we have a good number of collaborators, both nationally and internationally. And of course, we have had a decent publication track record, significant number being authored by our own faculty. We have been able to generate a substantial amount of grants in the last 20 years. So to sort of conclude, the key to success is building a line of research. We have been involved in maternal and newborn health research. I showed you the sort of the research agenda. When we started in 2001, with just 5 faculty members from JNMC, 3 obstetricians, 1 community medicine, and me, a physiologist, acting as the research coordinator. Starting with 1 protocol, now we have reached 30 protocols. Preliminary studies are important, pilot data is important, and publications are important to establish your track record and your expertise. And that's what the funding agencies look for. Start with something small, generate good quality data, publish it, and then seek funding for a larger study. They're more likely to be successful. So do what other people also call a SWOT analysis. A force field analysis. What are your strengths and weaknesses, and what are the opportunities and challenges? Convert your challenges into opportunities, and you're more likely to be successful. And this is a philosophy that has guided not only me, but my entire team for the last 20 years. That if your intentions are good, people will come to help you make that intention into a reality. So on that note, I once again thank Professor Kotur, Dr. Mahalakshmi, Professor Bhatt, and all the esteemed faculty, the staff, the postgraduates, and all the participants of this research seminar for giving me the time. I know probably I took longer than what I should have, but when you start talking, I think you probably lose sense of time. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for such an excellent and very informative talk. Sir has enumerated the crucial steps in formulating, undertaking the research so that we can get our research funded, and he has highlighted the priority research areas in maternal health and neonatal, especially in a country like India, and how we can collaborate with other colleges. And finally, the final slide, he has shown how much publications were possible and what was the outcome. Thank you, sir, very much. And you have explained how all types of research, starting from the observational study or even up to RCT, can be possible with a single thrust area of maternal and neonatal health. And we faculties have learned about how to plan a budget to ask for grants, because we have always doubts on this, and you have clearly explained us. Very much thanks for you, sir. And finally, you have given us the 4 main ingredients of success. And finally, the key to success, that is building a line of research. I hope the first part or the success part has been already done in our AVMC, building a line of research, and we'll go ahead and we'll sure that we'll be in success throughout. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. And we got some response from Dr. Vishnuvat sir and Dr. Mahalakshmi madam also. Very informative talk and fantastic talk, highly motivating talk. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Dr. Gowda,
Yes, sir.
here you said only 3:30, another 5-6 minutes are there. I didn't want to lose. Now, so many facilitations are available to conduct a research for anybody. You have put the last slide that universe is helping you to do an ardent research. I want your response about the premier funding agency, international one, WHO one. After all these such facilitations, etc., you must be familiar with some of the trials, including the kind of a solidarity trials related to chloroquine, then ivermectin. They started halfway through coming back. Then what happens in some things were violated, or something beyond which you described are there?
Yeah, research is like any other thing in life. There is the good, bad, and the ugly. We should try to sort of push the ugly to the side and try to hold on to the good. It's not easy. It's difficult. We have had our share of challenges. I mean, we have gone through difficult times, but what matters is having a team which thinks like you and having them on board. And the major challenge in research is ensuring accuracy of the data. People are prone to falsify data and fabricate data. And in 20 years, I've had at least 3 or 4 occasions on 2 or 3 major studies where we have had this challenge. We found it and we reported it to the funding agency. We didn't hide it. And in fact, when these incidents happened, there's some kind of pushback, why are you reporting it? It might hurt future funding. What will happen to the grant? They may blacklist you. Those kind of comments were there. But we stuck to our position that we have to be honest. We reported it. And rather than being blacklisted, actually the funding agency came back to us and said, you have been honest enough to report what you found, number one. And number two, you had a mechanism to detect it. So that sort of actually established our track record. So much so that of the 30 protocols that I mentioned, perhaps more than 50% have been by invitation rather than by competition. The funding agencies ask us, we have a protocol, can you do this? So it's not as if I am trying to, compete and get funding. The funding agencies themselves come to us. I'm not boasting, I'm not exaggerating, but the reality is your credibility is what matters. It's difficult, it's hard, but in the long run, I think that's the one which is going to pay off.
It's the best message you can give to people.
Yeah.
In the world.
Thank you, sir. Now we are into the proud moment of release of third annual Research Day Digest. I request our chief guest, Professor Shivaprasad S. Gowda, to declare the release of our abstract digest. Sir.
I'm not used to this inaugurations.
Yes, sir. and we have Dr. Manju, who is in the team digest of this annual Research Day. She will walk through this digest. Sir, I request you to just declare the release of this digest.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Any beautiful and wonderful program that has happened in the last 3 days, something like that, it has to go into the memory lane. So as a part of capturing the enthralling scientific moments of the third annual Research Day, we proudly share with you the abstract digest. The contents of the digest goes as such. What you see now first is a cover page, then is the conference brochure, followed by the table of contents. Then we have a short prelude about the Research Day. Then we have the Research Day schedule of the 3. Next, we have the organizing team of this 3 days workshop. Then we have the highlights of the workshop on the scientific communication, followed by we have the 3 days program schedule in detail. Then we have our resource persons. Then we have our messages, and from our Honorable Chancellor, Dr. A.S. Ganeshan sir, our Director VMRF, Dr. Anuradha Ganeshan ma'am, then Member Board of Management, Mr. Suresh Samuel sir, Vice Chancellor, Dr. Sudhir sir, Director Research VMRF, Dr. Satyamurthy sir, our beloved Dean AVMC, Dr. P.F. Kotur sir, Director Medical Research AVMC, Dr. Vishnu Bhatt sir, Dean Health Professionals Education, Dr. V.N. Mahalakshmi ma'am, Medical Superintendent, Dr. K. Jaisingh sir. Then we have included the learning resources for the workshop. This is for the benefit of the participants. Followed by, we have all the abstracts. First, we have the section of abstracts of the postgraduate e-oral presentations, followed by the abstracts of the postgraduates e-poster presentations, followed by our abstracts of the faculty e-paper presentations. Then we have the PhD e-paper presentations. So this is the last page. And I hope you all had a good research treat in AVMC in the last 3 days. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, sir. And we are into the very important event, announcement of prizes. So we had, for the past 2 days, we had different categories of research paper presentations. I request our chief guest to announce the prizes for our postgraduates who had presented. We have a different prize for a set of prizes for the oral presentation of postgraduates. Sir, I'd like to invite you to announce the prizes of PG oral presentations.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's my pleasure, and I'm glad you're having this competition, and I think this is really motivating and inspiring to the young postgraduates. So Dr. Madiha Abdul, a third year, gets the third prize, and Dr. Anuradha gets the second prize. So who's the, all right, Dr. Rajkiran Takarya from dermatology gets the first prize. So congratulations to all the three. That doesn't mean the others were not good enough, but there are only 3 prizes to be won. So others can also take consolation that next time you can make it. So congratulations to everybody.
So next we have PG's e-poster presentations. All were research papers for which the prizes are awarded.
Mm-hmm. The winners are Dr. B. Nikita from Obstetrics and Gynecology gets the third place. Dr. E. Nandini again from Obstetrics and Gynecology gets the second prize. And the first prize goes to Dr. Utukuru Pooja from the Department of Pediatrics. So again, congratulations to all the three winners.
Thank you, sir. Congratulations to all the winners and also for all the participants who have taken efforts and they have presented either it is a poster or an oral presentation. Thank you, sir, for such a proud being with us with this proud moment of all our postgraduates as a motivation for them also. Now I'd request, we had a faculty presentations, oral presentations of their seed money projects and also their other research projects. And we have the prizes over here and I would request our beloved Dean, Professor P.F. Kotur, sir, to announce the prizes of the faculty or oral presentation. Sir, we have one more. Sir, we have one more special prize of one e-poster presentation, sir, easy case report. I would like to invite you to announce this also, sir, special.
Yes. Dr. Dadia, congratulations to her.
This time we have invited presentations from outside our college also, from the other medical colleges. And this is from one of our constituent medical college in Salem. He had presented a case report and a prize was awarded among the case reports. Thank you, sir. Next, we have our faculty oral presentation. Sorry, sir. Now I'd like to invite our dean to announce the prizes of the faculty oral presentation. Sir, please.
The third prize goes to Dr. Prithviraj from the Center of Biomedical Research, AVMC. Congratulations to Dr. Prithviraj. Second prize goes to Dr. Arthi of the Biomedical Center for Biomedical Research. Congratulations, Dr. Arthi. The first prize goes to Dr. Arun Daniel from Community Medicine, AVMC. Congratulations, Dr. Arun. I congratulate all the three faculty members for taking participation and winning this prize. And Dr. Deepa, I would have appreciated, along with the prize, you should have given the topic that would have made more Dr. Gowda more happy. No? Anyway, it's over now.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. I'll take that input, sir. We could have done it. Yeah.
Yes.
That trophy is hanging there.
Yeah.
Sir, all these, all the prize winners will be awarded with that trophy. If it had been a physical mode, in the first annual research day, we were presenting them in the physical. So some of all these trophies have been will be sent to them, to all the prize winners. So in few days, sir. So next we have PhD scholars here. So we have a separate category of PhD oral presentation. Now I'd like to invite our Director of Medical Research, Dr. Vishnubhat sir, to announce the prizes for PhD oral presentation.
Dr. Deepa, yes, ask if Dr. Gowda likes to leave, because I know his schedule, that's why I'm telling.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I mean,
thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Sir, Dr. Vishnubhat sir, I would like to invite Dr. Vishnubhat sir to announce the prizes for the PhD oral presentation. Sir, please.
Yeah, I am ready.
Yes, sir. Sir, I was searching for
So the third prize goes to Mr. Yogesh. He is working in the Biomedical Research Center. He is doing the PhD program. Second prize, Mr. Mohan, Biochemistry Department. He is also doing PhD in our college. The first prize goes to Dr. Arun Daniel, Community Medicine again. He has got first prize in two categories, both in the PhD category and faculty category. I think he has to celebrate it by giving treat for all of us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely. Dr. Arun Daniel, are you hearing what sir is telling?
Well, sir has to give a treat for him.
Yeah, we are ready to give. He has to also provide the other stuff.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
Thank you, sir. I congratulate all the prize winners and all the participants also who have come forward to present their research papers, the PhD scholars and the faculty members who have come forward. And we are into the very important session.
Deepa, UG.
UG. We have a special, we had this UG oral presentation category also, and we have a special prize for the UG who has presented very nicely her paper. Sir, I'd like you to announce this special prize for her, sir, for the UG paper.
Or Dean?
Sir, yourself. Anyone.
Yeah, this was very interesting. This Pavitra, the student has presented. She has done an animal study. I think she would have been helped by the research division, but she has done a good job. And I thought she deserves MD, not MBBS, for that research.
Congratulations to Pavitra. You got a great words from great legend of research. Thank you, sir. Now let's move on to the next part of the program. All our 3 days we had, but we need a feedback from the participants, which will help us to improve and grow better. So I would like to invite a postgraduate who can give her feedback. Actually,
There is a hand raised by Susan. Kante Susan. Do you like to say something, Susan?
yeah, you can unmute yourself and you can speak.
Till he gets ready, Deepa, can we ask Ambujam madam, who has been a presence in all 3 days?
I was about to ask for permission to.
No, we want you to
ma'am. We
speak,
want
madam.
Thank you very much. You need, there is nothing more to improve as Vishnu Bhatt sir was, he will never get satisfied with the performance. He will need more and more. That is his way of approach. But let me congratulate the entire team for the effort that is being put, for the meticulous arrangements, and also even each and every section of the academicians and the students were trained. They have participated to the fullest extent, and they have done an excellent performance even in the podium itself. That speaks the ground level preparations and what of excellence in exposition of things. That's what I would like to say. All congratulations to go to the entire team headed by Professor Vishnu Bhatt sir, Puttur sir, Mahalakshmi madam, Deepa, and all the crews in the ship. The captain, everyone is the captain there. So that's my appreciation. And though I am not this thing, thank you very much. It was a real feast, and I take this as a treat for me from AVMC campus. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am, for your motivating words. Thank you, ma'am.
I never miss any of the events from AVMC. It is Friday event or a triple of everything. I see to it that I allocate the time on Fridays to attend.
Ma'am, we are indeed honored, madam. You are our honorary presence always with us. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank you, Deepa.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes.
We had somebody wanted to give feedback. Can you unmute and speak now?
I will go to faculty and PGs.
By the time PGs will be ready.
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Arun Daniel wanted to give his feedback, ma'am. For the past 3 days, he was with us with the workshop, and he has bagged some prizes also. He has presented.
And eat also. And eat
Eat also.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Ambujam, ma'am, for your recognition. Good afternoon, one and all. Respected dignitaries and the organizing team. I would like to thank this particular forum, which has given opportunity for the faculties to participate in this research event. As postgraduates, we used to run to different conferences to present papers, and we had that enthusiasm. But after the faculty period, we don't get much to move out because family life or whatever it is. But when a research treat is provided at our own place and we get opportunities like this, we feel very proud and we feel very happy to participate. And we can validate a questionnaire, but to validate a research, it requires a research forum. And thanks to all the organizing team for providing a research forum to validate whether our research is going correct or not. So thank you very much. And the wonderful scientific communication workshop, needless to mention that all the speakers were very excellent, and the talks were really practical oriented, and how to day to day, how we have to improve our research, especially the talks by great professors, which we don't get to see often, have been brought into a same umbrella by our organizing team and our Dean Madam. So thank you very much for this entire forum, and Director Medical Research and the entire crew for giving us this opportunity and a great research fest. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Arun Daniel. It was nice and kind words. And we have Dr. Samutrika from, she had presented a poster, e-poster, and she would like to share her experiences with us for the past 3 days.
Yes. Good afternoon to all. On behalf of all the postgraduates, I would first like to express my heartfelt thanks and gratitude to our beloved Dean HP, Director Medical Research, Medical Superintendent, and the whole organizing team for conducting this well-executed research day program for our benefits. We have definitely imbibed loads of information on the basics of research from this 3 days journey. This program has definitely enlightened budding researchers like us and also encouraged us to explore more newer pathways in the field of medical research. We gained clear-cut ideas on how to proceed with a good study proposal, how to follow the systematic steps of the life cycle of a research study, that is starting from formulating a research question to data collection, presenting legible, simplified data figures and tables, how to write a good discussion and an appropriate conclusion. All these sessions in the workshops were taught to us in a very easy and understandable manner. And also they had quoted many real-time examples which made us to easily understand them. We were also reminded that the duty of a principal investigator doesn't just end with conducting a good study, but we should also maintain good ethics throughout the study. Finally, we were taught how to approach a renowned journal for submission of our papers and what the editors expect the authors to provide information about. So these past 3 days have been very useful for us and surely encouraged us to write more good quality papers in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Samutrika. It was nice words you have given. And we have our full-time PhD scholar, Yogesh. He wanted to share his experience for the past 3 days he had with us in this research day. Dr. Yogesh.
Ma'am, am I audible, ma'am?
Mr. Yogesh, sorry. He's going to become Dr. Yogesh.
Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Yogesh. I'm a PhD scholar in Central Research Lab. And this is my first year in AVMC. Being a participant, I had great learning experience with all the scientific section and workshop in all these 3 days. And I would like to sincerely thank all the respected committee members and everyone who arranged the wonderful research day program for the past 3 days, ma'am. Ma'am, I need to say one suggestion, ma'am. May I?
Yeah, of course.
Ma'am, from my side, during an oral presentation, if you given a chance for a co-participant to have a discussion with the presenter, means we can clarify our doubt also with them, ma'am. So it will be useful for our studies too. This is my one of the suggestion. Thank you. That's
Thank you, Mr. Yogesh. We'll discuss on that and we'll do it. And we are in the final end of the session, and we have I would like to invite our Dean Health Professions Education, Dr. V.N. Mahalakshmi ma'am, to deliver the vote of thanks. Madam, please.
Thanks, Deepa. It gives me pleasure to propose this vote of thanks on behalf of the organizing team of the third annual research day, that is the research division, scientific society, and the PG coordinators team. Actually, in the invitation, it was written, somebody else's name was there as vote of thanks, and I was last minute replacement. It's like that, no, in the house, sometimes when you are very busy and you can't cook, we end up making rava upma, right? Sometimes rava upma also tastes very nice. So that is the thing. Okay, and on behalf of the team, I would like to thank our patrons, that is Dr. A.S. Ganesan, the Honorable Chancellor of EMRF, Dr. Anuradha Ganeshan, the Director of EMRF, Mr. Suresh Samwell, the Member of Board of Management. They have been always supportive. And in fact, when the very first edition in 2020 with the Scientific Forum, when we approached them, they gave a go ahead, and that's how we made a small beginning. And 3 years, I think we have grown gradually and reached these levels. And I hope that we would continue to grow with their patronage. And I would like to thank the advisory team of Professor P.F. Kotur and Dr. Vishnu Bhatt, who kept us on track, telling us, see, sometimes in our enthusiasm, we would like to do a lot more than what we can actually chew. So they kept us on track, and they made sure that our primary objective or the big picture was always there in front of us rather than getting carried away. Thank you very much. We'd like to thank the VMRF officials, that is our Vice Chancellor, Professor Sudhir, the Registrar, the Director of Research, Dr. Satyamurthy. All of them have been instrumental in promoting research in our campus. So we thank them. And we also would like to thank the deans of the other two medical colleges who accepted our invitation and sent their postgraduate students, and they also came and participated in this event. So our thanks are due to them. We thank the resource persons for the scientific workshop, for the judges for the various sessions, and most importantly, Dr. Gowder, who delivered the closing keynote. So without their knowledge, without their excellent contribution, this workshop or this program wouldn't have reached a very satisfactory completion. So we thank them profusely for taking out their time, actually going through these abstracts and sitting through the presentations, preparing for this, taking up the questions from them, whatnot they have not done for us. So our thanks are due for them. We'd like to thank the faculty members who have come forward and either listened to this and more importantly shared their presentations and research findings. We know it takes a lot of guts to come in front of somebody and then say this is what we have been doing for that. And sometimes that actually pays off very nicely, like how we got our friend Daniel getting prizes in 2 categories. That is what. So we thank you. I hope that this cross pollination, no, getting to know what is growing across from other departments and other places will help us to grow much better and will improve our thinking beyond our own confines. Many a times it is the silos which restrict us. We are inside silos, and there is gaps in our knowledge and gaps between us. So this kind of interdepartmental collaborations and open forums which we establish in the institutes help in cross pollination of ideas. And we know from Gregor Mendel studies itself, right? Cross pollination is always better than self pollination. So that is what it is. We'd like to thank the PG students who have been very much actively involved, right? We know that your exams are near and your focus is now shifted to that. But despite that, you all came forward and presented your papers, you shared your feedback. That's very nice of you. We hope that we have helped you to imbibe the spirit of research and foster that mindset of growth. So that is what is very important. We hope that the support offered, we thank the support which has been offered by the Office of Dean HPE, the Publication Division, the Medical Education Unit, the EDP section, the Space and Event Management, so many other, the personnel working in the Research Division, and also the members of the Scientific Forum, so who made this entire event possible. So our thanks are due. And last but not the least, I would like our team members to put on their videos so that when we say that we could thank them. We actually, for these kind of interdepartmental or events without boundaries, that's what we would like to call them, we require teams which are active and which actually are, they will bring their A game into the affair, right? So we thank the coordination team of Dr. Vidyavati, Dr. Deepa, and Dr. Ravi Kumar. Our thanks are due for getting these people, all people involved, getting them going. We'd like to thank the registration team of Aarti, Tumja, and Dr. Anushila. Thank you. You did a very great job of keeping track of so many registrations coming and all that. The finance team of Dr. Nishantini and Dr. Sushmita, they did a very good uh, work. And the abstract team and the team which took care of all the presentations, that again is Dr. Deepa, Dr. Vidyavati, and Dr. Ravi Kumar. They did very nicely. I think all communications were on spot. The technical team by our own ever smiling Aarti and Dr. Gopinath, they did a wonderful job even though they came in the last minute. So they brought their, actually they always think about where the puck is. No, they don't think about where it is, the ball is at right now, but they think about where the ball is going to go. So that's how they are able to troubleshoot most of the times. Thanks Aarti and thanks Gopinath. And most important is the conference digest team, which kept on working till the last minute. I think the last I saw them was at 2:15, just right off the shelf, no, half hot. They brought the digest. Thanks, Dr. Manju, Dr. Arun Daniel, and Dr. Prasad. Thank you very much. I think you all brought your A games and you made us proud. And more importantly, we learned to work as a team, and we faced some hitches, but I think that we have overcome it at the end. Thank you very much. Thanks, Deepa. So
Thank
Rava
you,
Upma,
ma'am.
I hope was okay.
Ma'am, the upma was very delicious with the ghee and cashew nuts prepared in good hands. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone. We'd like to wind up the session with the National Anthem.
Please rise.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. I thank everyone. Thank you.
Thanks to everyone here.
Thank
All
you,
of
sir.
you have
We'll
done a
close.
good job.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Recording close for me.